Russo, and I'm going to basically be the moderator for this conversation. And I am here with former WWE superstar Big Vito LaGrasso. How are you, Vito?
How's everybody today? Welcome to the Big Vito brand, and we're going live, baby, live. We always start everything off with great live, baby, live, and we have a great action-packed show for you, something new, something special. I'm going to let Noel tell you about it. Go ahead, Noel.
All right, guys, we are going to cover This Week in Pro Wrestling, and Vito gives us a bit of an inside scoop on things and some backstage stories. And this week is the week of April 1st, and it is Wrestlemania week officially. Wrestlemania is this weekend. So we are going to talk about April 1st, 2007, Wrestlemania 23. It was at Ford Field in Detroit, and it was the second time Wrestlemania had been taking place in Detroit following the record-breaking success of Wrestlemania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome. They had 93,123 fans in attendance watching Hulk Hogan slam Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Ricky Steamboat. But this was kind of a special WrestleMania. It included a lot of stars. Ford Field set their their attendance record at 80,103 fans. It was a joint pay-per-view, as there were three brands at the time: Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. The highlight of the card, basically, there were two main events, but they had advertised it as three. The big draw of the card was Vince McMahon versus Donald Trump, who now is president of the United States. Right. Donald Trump was represented by Bobby Lashley, and McMahon was represented by Umaga. Austin was the special guest referee. And Vito, you actually got to take place in this WrestleMania. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because many people might not realize that you actually were doing something there that was completely different. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Shawn Michaels and John Cena were on the card. They were tag champions at the time, turned against each other. Cena was champion. And there was also Batista, who was world champion. He went against The Undertaker, who had won the Royal Rumble that year. Now, let's get into a little bit about discussing the infamous road to WrestleMania. Since you were there, and you were there for all of the build, and there was a lot of great names wrestling on a full-time schedule at that time. Tell us a little bit about the road to WrestleMania.
Well, the road to WrestleMania, everybody's planning and jockeying for positions to get on the card. Everybody's looking for a match. Everybody's looking for that angle to be prominent enough to get you on the WrestleMania card. A lot of people get, if they're not on the, a lot of people get disappointed because they're on the pre-show, but hey, you're at WrestleMania. I know the paydays are different when you're on the actual card. Now, the prelude to it, you're on the road from the week before, and you don't go home. You go directly to the WrestleMania site, and you are there for one solid week of WrestleMania festivities. And let me tell you something, it's pretty cool. You're in the hotel, your room is paid for, food is paid for somewhat. You have breakfast and lunch, maybe dinner sometimes, but it's the going out, it's the camaraderie of the guys. It's everybody together, all three brands. A lot of times, a lot of people don't get to see each other. A lot of couples don't get to see each other because they're on different brands. But you know what? It's a fun-filled time. But there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to make this possible.
Well, the actual tire setup at Ford Field took actually 3 weeks to construct. It was designed by a very special designer. The theme was all grown up for this WrestleMania, so they wanted to give it a more adult, fresh, sharp look. So they designed a completely huge new set, new music, everything. And this was one of the first times, too, that WrestleMania appeared as a special separately on NBC right after WrestleMania had aired. So they were planning on doing network TV, so they definitely wanted to make it look really sharp. Did you guys have a lot of press previous? I know that they send a lot of different workers out to the press.
Tons of press, because Donald Trump was there, and that was the big draw. He's the president of the United States. Much respect to him. You know what? It was a special time because we had a special thing. A lot of great matches, a lot of great angles going on. And I got to be part of the lumberjack match. But
we're going to talk about that in just a second.
I'm going to do my Mr. Bill. Hold on.
Name that meme. Well, you're getting ahead. I don't want you to get ahead of yourself. Were you involved in any of the press activities? Because I know that a lot of wrestlers get involved in the outside press activities, and there's the access and things like that. Were you involved in any of those?
Yes, I was involved in some of the press activities. It was like a bunch of things where they have you go out there. You have to meet the fans at a bunch of different locations. bunch of different interviews going on. It's definitely something special to be part of. Um, from the top to the bottom, I mean, if you've never been there and you never experienced it, you're happy to be there. You're happy to be part of the card. And then after you're there for the first time, you say the next year, I want to be more. I want more. I want to be more of the part of the party.
This kind of leads me into my question. You were part of the lumberjack match with Ric Flair and Carlito versus Chavo Guerrero and Shane Helms. You were one of these lumberjacks, but traditionally, previously, and after, they had a battle royal for the superstars that per se didn't have a match or weren't involved in a feud. They still do that now, and they have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. The women also on this card had a Battle Royal as well, or didn't have a Battle Royal as well. They were the Lumberjills for the title match. So was there any rumblings or anger or upset that there was no Battle Royal in this WrestleMania as there traditionally have been?
There might have been some rumblings, but I think everybody got to be a lumberjack, and lumberjack and Battle Royal, it's the same payday. It was like $3,000 to $5,000. So I mean, it wasn't much of a payday, but still a payday. But I think the big thing is what people don't realize, especially when you don't have a place on the card, just to be there and be a part of it. It's definitely a privilege that's earned, and it's definitely a privilege that you look back on and say, I should have enjoyed it more.
I think you enjoyed it a lot, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, how much you actually enjoyed WrestleMania. So this WrestleMania in particular was kind of unique for you because you actually debuted a new gimmick that no one ever got to see on TV. And if you had access to Deep South Championship Wrestling, you were able to see Vito in this gimmick. He was Deep South Heavyweight Champion. He was developmental champion then. But you want to explain a little bit about the kind of debut of this gimmick and maybe a little bit about why we never got to see that on SmackDown?
Well, it was a gimmick that Vince McMahon said, go ahead and make a gimmick that you think will work. So I came up with this Muay Thai gimmick. They said, come up with a different look, a different angle. And nobody had a Muay Thai gimmick ever. They had a shoot fighter, and the shoot fighter down there was the Italian guy. What's his name?
All I can think of is Santino Marella.
Santino.
That's all I can think of.
It was Santino Marella. He was doing it like an Ultimate Fighter thing for UFC. I came in doing a Muay Thai gimmick. I had the Congo on, and I had the look, and they all thought I looked like that guy from the fights, Chung something.
Yeah, I know who you mean. I'll find a picture of it.
We'll find a picture.
Yeah.
We'll do a comparison.
We'll do a little comparison on here because I'll show you guys a picture. It'll probably be like right here.
So I changed the style of the way I wrestle. And I actually took Muay Thai lessons. I did this 3 times a week. I was in karate schools. I was in Muay Thai. I was practicing. And I actually got to be good. Batista used to train. We used to train in his garage when he was home. So we used to train in his garage. And, we do a Muay Thai workout. It was awesome stuff. And, some of the best times in that garage, just watching the power of Dave Batista throwing kicks. I would look at and be amazed at his power, and he would always tell me, he said, Vito, you're so light on your feet, you're fast. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, yeah, it's just the energy level. But just the power of Dave was like something like you never seen before.
Did you get to train a lot with Dave leading up to the WrestleMania because Batista wrestled The Undertaker on this card?
Well, when he was home, we used to train, like I said, doing that. So it wasn't as much as he was on more of a heavier schedule than I was. So, but when, he was home, I was always at his house. We were boys back then. I was friends with his mom and the family. So it was kind of like, we were all together all the time. So it was a good thing.
Okay, so you got to train with Batista a little bit for WrestleMania. You had your Muay Thai gimmick. You're getting ready to come down the ramp. What did it feel like going out there in front of 83,000 fans?
Well, I'll tell you, it was something special, fans. Not only because it was 83,000 fans, not because I had my gimmick on, like a new gimmick to debut, but the fact that I was at WrestleMania and I made it to WrestleMania. It doesn't matter in what capacity. I made it to WrestleMania. And that was my second one. So, you look at it, the first one I didn't participate in because I had just gotten in the company. I enjoyed it. I was happy to be there. Second one I got to participate in. So, it's a growing process. Nobody goes from zero to hero, very few. And those guys, they will have, that special oomph.
You have pretty much amazing company in the Lumberjacks, as you had William Regal, Miz was a Lumberjack, like
It was a who's who.
Yeah, it was literally a who's who of Lumberjacks. Nunzio was out there with you, Willie Strickland. Nunzio was always with Vito, but yeah, Nunzio was out there, Gene Sininsky. There was a lot of different people and a little different spots in the company were out there with you as Lumberjacks.
Sure.
And it was, again, you're here and there's Ric Flair in the ring with you, and then there's, these big superstars. So it had to be a great, like, electric feeling. But what I'm interested in, actually, let me hold that for a minute. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame ceremony, because the class of 2007 was pretty much a genius class. And I'm going to touch on a little. Dusty Rhodes was the headliner.
Right.
And you've known Dusty Rhodes for many, many years. You're friends with his son, things like that. But there were two people that were inducted in this year that are special people to you personally. The first one, Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect.
Why don't you tell us a little bit what it felt like when they inducted Mr. Perfect in the Hall of Fame?
Well, the fact that I got to meet Mr. Perfect way back in the day when I first started in the WWF in '91, and then throughout the years I got to travel with him, and we got to work together in WCW on some other overseas tours, and then the fact that he was there he was inducted, and I was his son had just started in developmental, and it was funny because I wrestled his father, and Harris Smith was there, and I didn't meet Harris Smith before. I wrestled his father, and I wrestled Bret Hart, and I wrestled Owen. I wrestled Mr. Perfect. And how many guys could say they meet their father's opponents after they pass away and say, hey, I wrestled your dad, and they actually had nice things to say about me because their fathers mentioned me in conversation. So it was pretty cool.
So that had to be a good feeling, getting to see your friend finally get inducted. Probably a little bittersweet since you didn't get to be there. And the year before, you were there when Bret Hart went in. And Bret was a big part of your career, because some of your first WWF matches were against Bret. You guys had a series of matches where Bret worked with you. Do you want to tell the story a little bit about that?
Well, first time I worked with Bret, I went up there for my first WWF match. First night I wrestled The Rock. His second night I wrestled Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. That was his first TV match. And to say he was hard with me, or he made sure everything connected, it was kind of he made his point, but that was the way you trained. That was the way you broke in.
It was a different time, too.
It was a different time. But the fact that, the next night he came up to me and he apologized to me. Not too many pros do that. He apologized to me, say, hey, I was a little rough with you. He says, I apologize. He says, you worked really good. I didn't know you were trained by Johnny Rods. He says, now I asked to work with you again. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to be one of you guys. He says, you are one of us. He says, don't worry about it. He says, let's go out and have a good match. And I was one of the few guys in the 90s who did, enhancement matches, or like people say, jobs.
Said the J word.
But you know what? But that's how you got your experience, and that's what people don't realize, is that you get your experience like this, and this is how you learn in the business. So you're talking, I learned from the Rockers, to Bret Hart, to the Bulldog, to Boss Man, to Legion of Doom, to The Undertaker, Percy Pringle, Virgil, Typhoon, Coco Beware, Iron Mike Sharp. I'm probably forgetting some people, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. And the fact that Tatanka,
Bobby Eaton, you left out.
Bobby Eaton, and back then I wrestled Tatanka 4 times. I wrestled Bret Hart 4 times. And when you wrestle somebody multiple times, they ask for you. So that's a coup in my cap. And that was when Tatanka was on his undefeated streak. That was Bret in his hot streak when he was, on his singles run during his championship.
That was his very first singles run in the WWF too, because he was always a tag team with Jim Neidhart.
Yeah, and then you had The Undertaker when Undertaker was just starting. So you're talking about, I got to wrestle prominent guys in the beginning of their run. I was there when Razor Ramon started.
You started doing enhancement talent right after WrestleMania 7, which was The Undertaker's debut at WrestleMania 7. He defeated Jimmy Snuka.
Yes.
And that's somebody you also traveled with on the road previous to all this.
I wrestled Jimmy Snuka. I can't tell you how many times up and down the road, the East Coast, going to Maine, Boston, everywhere. And the matches I had with Jimmy Snuka, the promoters always said, Vito, I don't know what it is, but Jimmy always works and he gets up for you. You make him work. And, but I was a hard worker and everybody saw the hunger in what I had going on. So, I mean, it was a good thing for everybody.
I just wanted to give everybody an idea how long you've actually been around that atmosphere of the WWF, WWE. I mean, WrestleMania 7, Los Angeles Auditorium, that was back in 1991. You had that was Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter, Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. I mean, it was a who's who of WrestleMania. It's actually one of my favorite WrestleManias. But Undertaker started his streak then, and right shortly after, in fact, one of the advertisements before you wrestle the Undertaker is for the WWE magazine with like screenshots and things like that. So he's been around that long in this atmosphere. So it's really great we get to like hear some kind of insider history. There was a lot of celebrities also were at this WrestleMania.
But if you let me add
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's right. No, what everybody forgets is the very first video, action-packed video that the WWF made was the Slam Jam video. That is the first wrestling video that WWF made, and I am in it.
It was the first music CD produced because they had WrestleMania, the album, in the 80s, and they made videos for that. But this was the first CD they made in the 90s, the very first one. And you're featured in the Slam Jam video wrestling The Undertaker.
Yep, I am taking a flying clothesline from The Undertaker, taking a big bump. And if you remember, I used to have the black and red
Right, Skull Von Crush.
Von Crush.
Von Crush outfit. You're Andre the Giant. Sideways top. So let me get on to asking you about the celebrities, because there was a lot of celebrities aside from Donald Trump. Although I do want to know, did you have any interaction with Mr. Trump? Did you get to meet him?
Yes, I did meet him. I shook his hand. I introduced myself to him. It was a pleasure to meet him. Total gentleman.
I bet you had no idea he was going to be president of the United States.
I don't think nobody knew anything of anything. But what I could say about Donald Trump back then, he was a total gentleman. Happy to take a picture with you, happy to meet you, shake your hand, talk to you. He's very humble back there. Plus he's Vince McMahon's buddy, so he wasn't going to stomp on Vince's toes. Of course he's going to be cordial. He's not going to be uptight. So it was a win-win for everybody. And, Donald Trump is a famous, pulverizing figure.
That's amazing. Aretha Franklin came back to sing America the Beautiful as she did in WrestleMania 3. Did you get an opportunity to meet Aretha Franklin?
Yes, thought she was a beautiful person. I actually had a conversation with her about her singing career and about the Blues Brothers.
Oh, really? You love the Blues Brothers. Also, too, Wade Boggs was there, and he inducted Mr. Perfect into the Hall of Fame. Did you see Wade Boggs? You're like a huge baseball fan.
I actually spoke to Wade Boggs, and we talked baseball for about a couple of hours. And talking Yankee, Red Sox, Red Stock history, Yankee history, his hitting techniques, him being in the Red Sox, one of the best hitters, all-around hitters of all of baseball. And the fact that Carl Yastrzemski and Ted Williams were Red Sox and Wade Boggs was right behind Carlton Fisk and Fred Lynn, Dennis Eckersley. I mean, you're talking about a great Red Sox and great people during the Yankee rivals. So, I mean, it was really good.
We're getting to your favorite part of the discussion here, and any favorite part, the party. WrestleMania is pretty famous for being the biggest party of the year as far as WWE is concerned. So I have to ask you about the party, because I specifically have to ask you about your dates.
All right. Well, on that particular...
Let me intercede. We weren't married yet. Go ahead.
On that particular WrestleMania, I had the honor and privilege of escorting Batista's mom to the WrestleMania party, to WrestleMania. And, like I said, Batista, his family, myself, and Dave, we were all pretty tight. And, I was included in all family events. And it was an honor and a privilege to be, friend.
I have a feeling you're leaving some things out. Let it all out. Let the fans know. They tune in to get the dirt. We're giving them the behind the scenes, but this is the part of the show where we get the dirt.
Well, I mean...
Give me the dirt.
And then, I actually had some other extracurricular activities happening. You know,
Put them out there. Nobody's censoring you. You're free to say whatever you want on
well,
this
there
show.
are a couple of VPs that
Are you kayfabing?
there are a couple of VPs
Let it out.
in the WWE that were very tasty.
Don't kayfabe, brother.
I'm not here to listen. You know, when you have a good time with the office, you have a good time at the office. Drinks are free.
Do you have any specific WrestleMania stories for the after party or the activities that you would like to share? You don't have to give any names.
No, I'm not giving no names. The dancing was awesome. The drinks were potent. Everybody let loose. Everybody was on top of each other. Everybody was hugging and kissing. And it was a who's sleeping with who that night that was would blow your mind.
Who?
If I told you who, it would probably ruin some marriages today. So
Whisper it in my ear. I won't say it out loud. Whisper it in my ear. Really? Really? That's the truth? Really?
it would hot stuff.
We're going to do an expose on this in the future. Trust me. I'm not letting him get away without telling you guys this in the future. So, wow. So,
no, what happened? But in defense,
say.
What happens with the boys stays with the boys. You don't advertise things. This is my wife. You know, she asked. We're over here. I'm not blowing anybody up. I'm not trying to get anybody in any trouble. You asked me if there's a lot of good times happening. Absolutely.
Were there any controversies? I know we had talked before about there was some thefts or something, wasn't there, at WrestleMania? Was it that WrestleMania or something different?
Say that one more time.
You said something about there were some thefts or something at WrestleMania. Was this WrestleMania that?
I don't know. Some stuff.
Somebody did some stuff. You got to. This is a shoot, babe. You got to shoot. All
right, so let's shoot. Okay, so there are a couple of VPs. There's some VP interaction with the VPs of the VPs. And when you go to the bar and you're looking good and you're feeling good and you got your Mac on and, you go down to WrestleMania and you're supposed to be somebody's, somebody's lover for the evening. But that person wants to go have beers and wants to go out and have some good time. Then you say, really? Okay.
Why don't you just tell the story and leave out the names? You're beating around the bush on this one.
I'm telling it as best I can.
Just tell it.
All right. So
this is going to be the good part. Go ahead, Vito.
There was this chick in talent relations. And you call the talent relationships who I was involved with. But what are you going to do? I mean, it happened. It was all good. And then she decided to, stay out with her girls and wanted to play the field and wanted to be out there doing it. I said, okay. I'm up here. I said, no problem. I put my best Mac on, went downstairs, looking good, smelling good.
And the boys were laughing, right? Because they
knew.
They knew. So they were laughing at you because you were going down all dressed up and she was down there at the bar hanging out.
And I was like, okay. So I'm not going to say there was somebody's assistant who was at the bar. This assistant was very, very nice to me.
But the person they were assisting was extraordinarily high up on the food chain, correct?
One of the biggest names in wrestling today. So, with that said, the assistant playing footsie, I was playing right back, and the daggers that were coming across the bar. Are you ready now? No. You don't ever front on Big Vito, the B-I-G-V. You don't play that game with me because I will go down there and score somebody in front of you and make you eat your words. And I will make you regret not coming up when I say, yo, girl, let's go.
So you wanted her to come up and hook up, and she would not come up and hook up. She wanted to go down and drink.
She wanted to stay down and drink, and I said, okay. She told me she was going to come up. I said, all right, I ain't playing these reindeer games. I'm Vito LaGrasso. I don't play these games. You want to go out and have a good time? Vito LaGrasso is going to have a better time, and you're going to enjoy watching me have a good time, and especially with, let me buy you a drink. Oh, let me get that for you. Put their arm around me. Give me a kiss on the cheek, and you talk about getting hot. You could have lit You could have started a bonfire and started toasting marshmallows. That's how hot it was.
So the bottom line question that I think myself and the audience have is, did you get laid that evening?
Several thousand times.
Was it by the assistant or someone at the bar?
Someone at the bar finally made the call. Okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go up. And she kept giving me the signal. I was like...
So you did get laid, but then you made her wait in return.
Oh, heavily. And let me tell you something. I could have put myself in a very awkward position. I mean, being a sexy son of a bitch, being a playgirl, doing the dress, a whole lot of women out there who were loving Vito Russo and like just, digging my style, liking my look. You know what I mean? You know when you got your Mac on, people?
You call me ghetto. Look at you.
It's not about being ghetto. It's just being confident. I got swag when it comes to the ladies. There's only one of me. There's nobody better than me. Nobody bigger than me. There's nobody more awesome than me. Nobody's going to love like me. Nobody's going to treat you like me. Either you be with the BIGV or leave.
Do you have any other stories to round out this lovely discussion on vagina at Wrestlemania?
Vagina at Wrestlemania was awfully tasty and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Do you have any other stories you'd like to close with?
All 32 flavors of it.
Do you have any other things you'd like to close out with as we bring the show here to a close?
No, I just got to say, you talk about WrestleMania stories, you talk about parties, and talk about the office. There was interactions, especially when you're interacting with some of the people in the office, when somebody calls up and they say, hey, you want to hook up, and you're listening on the other end, one person's on top of you, and you're having your love nest, and you actually listen to him drunk on the phone, and you're like, really?
Wait, whoa, hold on a second. So we got to go back a little bit. Boy, this WrestleMania discussion went well. So somebody is on top of you and you pick up the phone and somebody...
I didn't pick up the phone. The other person had to pick up the phone.
So somebody was on top of you and picked up the phone and it was somebody else from the office trying to...
Hook up.
Do you want to give us a hint so maybe we could figure out who it is?
Let's see. What's the best way to explain it? It was an ace of spades.
Wow.
But that's a whole different show.
That's a whole different show, and we'll definitely get into that in the future. So Vito, next week, our discussion here is going to be about April 7th is the week that we're going to be covering. And the event we're going to cover is when Vader, Leon White, was detained in Kuwait after he had attacked the host of Good Morning Kuwait.
Right.
He was arrested after this confrontation after the host asked him a question about the legitimacy of pro wrestling. He assaulted the host. He went on to basically trashed the entire set. He spent 10 days in house arrest in Kuwait before he was allowed to come back to the U.S. and he had to pay a fine. So we're going to discuss this event next week, confrontations and fights in public over the legitimacy of pro wrestling and protecting your gimmick next week on This Week in Pro Wrestling History. And we'll see you guys then.
Yeah. I feel like Big Vito. Yeah, I feel like Big Vito. Yeah, feel like Big Vito. Yeah. I said, I'm up next like I got the call from Vito. We not some average Joe, stay escaping from Leos. So call me Big Vito, I got a kick like a shotty. And like Ciroc, you're taking hard shots to the body. They had you on a dress, but you were still styling.